Okay, I think we will get started now. The time is 6:30, at least on my clock here. So thank you everyone so much for joining. My name is Lars, and I'm really excited to kick off now the second Nordic Virtual GTD meetup ever. So this was a lot of fun to do last time, and we, of course, decided to do it again. Like last time, we're joined by GTDers across the Nordics, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and here in Denmark, and a couple of people joining us online as well. And of course, our special guest, David Allen, author of Getting Things Done, is joining us from Amsterdam, I'm guessing. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Sure.
So the agenda is pretty straightforward, like it was last time. We will do a quick round of introductions from each of the countries, and you as well, David, of course, and then we will dive into the questions, and we will end at around 16:30. For those of you, 19:30. For those of you attending online, feel free to ask questions in the Zoom chat. I don't know if we will get to them, but feel free to ask them there, and if not, then go to your the global forums or perhaps the local forums on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever that might be. A couple of quick notes. I think let's see how bad the background noise is. The noise was a bit noisy last time. I think we have better mics this time, and also we're not trying to stream to Facebook, at least not from the same laptop that is hosting the event. So let's see if this will work out a bit better. But if you do see any background noise, then please mute. And if you post online about this on social media, then please feel free to use the hashtag NVGTD Meetup. That's the one we decided to use. So let's go around the table, starting with I guess we have two groups in Norway. So let's start with you, Espen.
Yeah, hi. So we're here in Trondheim. Some people off screen and some people on screen. Just gathered here in a nice hotel conference room in a hotel that agreed to sponsor us tonight. So very happy for Choice Hotels, who sponsored this venue for us. Excited to hear from all of you, and great that we managed to gather so many people in so many different places.
Cool, thanks, Espen. Let's go to Bjørn Christian.
Yes, we are 4 people here at Peppers Pizza in Oslo today. Let's hope we can get some more people in. We will at least be the 4 of us.
Thanks, Bjørn Christian. And let's move on to Finland.
So hello, Jukka here from Finland. We are at FinID Oy, who is kindly hosting the meetup here in Finland. We are all 4 people here. I made the event possible to view via Facebook stream, and naturally when Finns have the possibility to stay at home and not participate physically, they choose the first option. Thanks.
Thanks, Jukka. And from Sweden?
Yes, hello. My name is Jesper, and we have 7 participants here in Stockholm, and a few new faces. So welcome to this, and looking forward to this event.
Thanks. And just quickly here from Denmark, we're I think 12 people gathered here today. So hi everyone from Copenhagen, and also thanks here to EFS World, who were so kind to save us from not having a place to meet. Thanks Martin for that. And last but not least, David. If your audio is still on, David, or maybe I muted you.
No, I muted myself. Thanks. I'm back. Well, when you get to be old like me, you kind of forget stuff. Happy to be here, delighted to be here, and delighted to have such a vibrant community showing up north of me here. So I'm thrilled to be a European now, as Catherine and I are. and nice to be so close in a way, neighbors to you guys. And happy to be here, be a resource if I can be, and just to play with all of you. We're all in this game together, so thanks.
Thanks, David. So let's just dive right into it. Not too many other things to do. We've captured some questions in advance. Like we did last time, we will go from group to group, ask a question and see where that takes us. So let's just start off in the same order that we did the round of table. So Espen, let's go to you.
Well, actually, the most pressing question is probably an easy one, as it's it's not GTD related even. Because we were wondering how long until that pile of books behind David Allen falls down on his head.
Well, interestingly, interestingly, it's actually a fabulous book stand from Design Within Reach in the US. And it's got the footprint of a big book, but it's all organized so that you can, you have a small footprint, you don't have a lot of books. And these are all the different languages that GTD and my other books have been translated into. We were gonna throw all these books away in California. The captain said, you know, we probably ought to keep at least one copy of the Korean version, the Chinese version, the Thai version, etc. So they have, and you know, in webinars and so forth, they like to see books behind somebody. It makes them look like they know what they're talking about. So that's why they're there. So, there's your answer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. And part two in Norway, Jan Christian?
Yes, talking about books. David, could you tell us a little bit about your news book, the GTD for Teens?
Yeah, it's great. I didn't do most of the heavy lifting of the real writing of all the text for that, but my two co-authors, Mark Wallace and Mike Williams, did that. But it's great. It's basically framing the basic GTD 5 steps to getting control, 6 horizons, and the natural planning model for kids. How would they use that? How could they use that potentially? What use might they have for that? And a lot of good examples for it. So it's interesting because it was written, the book was written for caring adults, parents, counselors, teachers, clergy, whoever, who have an interest in kids getting this before they leave school. Mom is no longer the trusted system. How many of them actually know what to do with themselves once they leave mom for college or a job or whatever? And this is framed as a way to hopefully provide an education that none of us had when we left. We just had to figure all that stuff out. So hopefully this will help move that forward. So it's really, I've had adults read it and go, wow, what a great reminder and kind of new spin on this stuff. There's a lot of cartoons in there. We use characters. Miggy, who stands for the amygdala part of your brain, and Roland stands for the forebrain part of your brain, and that kids are going to be distracted by so many things. How do they train themselves to use their forebrain to stay focused on what they need to? So it's about staying focused in a world full of distraction. And as you guys probably know, if you know teens, I just ran across a woman a couple of weeks ago whose son is 11 years old and he had 500 WhatsApps on his phone. So, this is like, whoa. It's a world where the principles are the same for everybody, but is there a way we could potentially teach kids how to think through the stuff that's coming up for them? Are you ready for the next exam? Are you ready for graduation? Are you ready for college? Are you ready for the senior dance? Are you ready for whatever? And getting kids to actually have a structured format to think about that. And their parents or anybody around them can help facilitate that process. So we'll see. I think the jury is out about how that's going to work. Who's going to be most attracted to the book itself. but it's written so a teen, and we've had kids younger than 13 look at it and read it, and kind of get it, and certainly useful for kids at college age as well. It's really targeted for that middle school, teen world where, no longer, you're now having to drive yourself. You're now having to manage your own schedule as opposed to having your authority to do that for you. So it's really targeted at that transition. So we'll see. It's due to show up July 10th, I think, is when it officially lands on the bookshelves in the US. And we'll see. Kind of excited about it. I just tweeted, by the way, a great interview with Mike Williams and April Perry. She's got a podcast and stuff for moms. And it's a 40-minute interview with Mike about the book that I would highly recommend you go listen to. So just go to my Twitter and you'll see a link to that 40-minute interview. It's worth listening to. Mike is brilliant about this.
Cool. Thanks, David. So let's move on to Sweden.
So staying on the topic of books, I'm looking for some summer reading, and seeing the stack of books behind you, I thought you might have some tips for both in the area of personal productivity and books not in the area of personal productivity.
Wow. I almost forget the books I read as soon as I read them. Hard to say. Don't have a real favorite right now. What would I say? I just read Predictably Irrational, fun book to read, by Dan Ariely. It's been out for a while, but just fascinating stuff about how much we think we're being rational in our decisions, but they're really not. They're based on a lot of other things going on in our psyches, so that make those choices that we think they're rational, but not necessarily. That was just kind of fascinating, just kind of fun. I would say that big aha. Yeah, that's kind of what's on my radar. I was just given a book called Breaking Rank. This was written by a very senior guy. He actually ran RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, for the Caribbean. For a while, he's just now kind of retired from that. And I just did a TEDx in Curacao. They invited me to do that. He was also a speaker, and he wanted to chat with me about it. And this is his book about basically the necessity. Well, the subtitle is How to Lead Change When Yesterday's Stories Limit Today's Choices. It's really about the paradigms that the third world has about themselves. That the white guys are better and smarter than we are, and how that's affecting, their choices, their opportunities, etc., and how to sort of them to break free of that paradigm that the colonial world kind of built into a lot of the third world. The third world is, as you guys probably know, is up and coming. Anyway, fascinating. I actually haven't read it. I just opened my DHL that had the book in it. So we'll see. We'll see what that's like. A fabulous book. If you haven't read The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly, highly recommend that. Kevin Kelly was the founding editor of Wired, and I think this came out, The Inevitable came out a year or two ago anyway. It's the 12 trends that you can't stop. And Kevin's point of view is, and he sort of curated his last 20 years of being right on the front edge of the technology world and what's going on. And his point of view is, you think we've come to the end of the digital world? He says, come on, guys, we are at the cusp of a change that will make the Industrial Revolution look tiny in terms of where the world is going, in terms of AI and the virtual world and so forth. He said, it's funny, everything, you only call something AI if it hasn't been implemented yet. every one of us right now is already engaging in the world of AI and where the virtual world is coming and virtual realities and so forth. So fascinating. Kevin's a smart guy. Fascinating book. So those are some, that'd be a good summer reading if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Cool. So, Jukka?
Okay.
Jukka has a new puppy.
Not yet. We're actually going to pick it up in 2 weeks.
Ah.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. Okay, so the first question from Finland is that how do you check in with your areas of focus? How do you keep your areas of focus up to date and in balance with one another? Any routines or best practices that you have found particularly helpful?
Yeah, and this is only because you're all so smart and so savvy and so cool. I'll give you a big secret. Teach this stuff so you feel embarrassed if you don't look at your own. You know, come on. Well, no, that's not true. I mean, it's a good idea on some consistent basis to just scan through it. And if nothing else, just to kind of get things current. So whenever I'm sort of doing an extended weekly review, sometimes I'll pull up those maps and say, gee, David, anything else that needs to change or needs to shift on this or needs to whatever. And, you know, my life is not moving that fast like it used to. So I don't need to necessarily revisit all of that in terms of my own accountabilities and responsibilities. But, you know, still things are changing. We're changing the structure of my business. And so that's going to shift some of my own, how I think about my roles and my accountability for the business. Catherine and I are planning to immigrate to the Netherlands, in which we can do it a year. That's already been on my project list and been sort of how's our lifestyle, how's our quality of life, how we're spending our recreational time and so forth. So that's kind of been there already. So I think you only need to revisit these things whenever they're on your mind. And if they're not on your mind and it's on cruise control, then no need to revisit. The whole purpose of all these orienting maps is simply to give you a way to orient yourself if you feel disoriented. So I felt pretty oriented for a good while lately. So there's a long non-answer to your question. Hopefully that helps.
Well, I would like to know if there's a specific piece of software you would recommend.
I didn't quite hear that. Somebody speak up louder.
Software. You want me to go up?
Yeah. 1 second.
Joo, tuolla kuuluu jotain mukinaa jostain kaukaa.
Well, I'm looking for, I mean, the question is there a specific piece of software that you would recommend for GTD, an app or smartphone?
No.
Computer? No. Well, okay.
No, I mean, there are hundreds. Anything that manages a list and anything you'll use can work.
Okay.
Don't try to assume that getting a new piece of software is going to get you to do GTD. Good luck.
Well,
It's kind of the strange paradox that if you really get GTD, it doesn't matter what tool you use. You make any tool useful. Just give me a pen and paper and some file folders, and I'll do GTD. That's fine. On the other hand, once you really get GTD, the tool is really cool, and I want the best one. I want everything that's going to be the best. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I hear it. And frankly, nobody's come up with anything close to even what I'm using, which is basically the eProductivity overlay on IBM Notes that a friend of mine designed several years ago. Nobody's come anything close to it. They're all just list managers. But give me my overlay on IBM Notes. If I sent you an email right now, I just hit a radio button that says waiting for, and it automatically goes to my waiting for list. It automatically date stamps it, automatically puts your name on it. Give me something else that does that. Nothing. So they're just list managers. So until the world decides it really wants something that powerful. Come on, guys, I've tried twice in the early 90s or the mid 90s. and then, 4 or 5 years ago, working with Intentional Software to see if the world was really ready and the technology was really ready for a real GTD app that would take it out way beyond list management, so that you could really, do very, very cool stuff in terms of decision support with it. And A, technology is not there. B, the market's not there to be able to fund, building something like that. I'd love it if there was one. I drew that software back in 1994. I've still got my hand-drawn UI of what the ideal GTD software would be. And I've now shared it with the world. I just shared it at the Next Web last year, the Next Web conference. Look, guys, frankly, nothing has changed the world out there except word processors and spreadsheets. Those change the world. Nothing else. Everything else has just sped things up. There's been no game changer, but aside from word processing, which allowed us to kind of write the way we think, which is then later on come back and re-edit it. That was a game-changing, piece of technology. And obviously, Lotus 1-2-3 and the spreadsheets and relational databases changed the world too. You could do a whole lot more in 10 minutes than you could do in 10 years based upon those tools. Those were game changers. Nothing else. Sorry, I'm old and cranky. Somebody else give me anything you think has really changed the game other than speed it up and add volume. Nothing. So yeah, I've got the design. All I have to do is find somebody with about $6 billion that doesn't care about whether the market buys or not, and we could build it. Until then, go home.
All right, thanks. So back to you, Espen.
Right. I had a question from someone who picked up on the AI discussion earlier. GTD is about getting stuff out of your head, and do you see that AI will play a role in GTD in the future? It's kind of related to what we were just talking about, the game changers and the technology. So,
well, I think so. If for you to be able to walk into a room on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and first of all, the room knows it's you. It also knows it's Friday at 3 o'clock. And it knows that you've had some of your best ideas by just stopping work and having a beer at 3 o'clock on Fridays. And it says, by the way, here's the things you like to think about these times of the afternoon. You want to think about any of those right now. So it won't make the decisions, but it can enhance decision support like crazy. You walk in and go, it's about to spend the weekend with my family. So all of a sudden in the hologram in the room, it shows up with all the pictures of your family people. Punch on your mom, and it tells you her birthday, tells you her favorite color, tells you whatever, her birthday, what she really likes to talk about. Or you punch on your daughter, and it tells you what her issues were that she brought up last week when you had a family council, and you've forgotten about that. It'd really be nice if you really knew that before you go home. Right? That's where AI tremendously. I mean, every one of you listening to this right now could have had a lot more thoughts today about things that could have added value to a lot of your life had you had the right things put in front of your face at the right time and been able to capture the results of your thinking that it would trigger. So that's good. We haven't even started yet.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, and Björn Christian?
Yes, I want to go back to focus horizons. What's your best advice for people that are struggling to get started with setting up their horizons of focus?
Well, it depends on what you mean by setting up their horizons of focus. I mean, you're talking about just getting people to implement GTD to begin with. We tend to start with where people are, not necessarily with where they should be. So we tend to generally start, those of you who have done any at least informal coaching, you got to start with what's on people's mind. You know, I need cat food. I need to do babysitter. I need tires on my car. I've got the holiday coming up. I need to hire a vice president. I need to figure out what to do about this problem that just showed up with my printer. I mean, you know, that's where people are. So people, we tend to start with getting people in control of whatever horizon that has most got their attention. And the lower horizons, meaning, the lower not meaning less than, which is lower meaning more operational. Your ground level and your horizon one, you know, actions and projects driving it. That's where those are changing so fast. That's usually what's most out of control for people. And so we tend to focus people on those horizons first, just to be able to get those under control. First of all, if those are out of control, it's hard to think at any higher horizon. And once you get the best practices about those lower horizons, how to implement, how to create a project out of a dream you have, how to create a next action out of that project, and start to manifest stuff, you know, make it up, make it happen. So the make it happen game, once you feel more confident you can do that, it gives you a lot more freedom to think at higher levels. You're willing to surf bigger waves. Essentially, once you know that you can get on, that you have a surfboard to surf on, and you can get back on the surfboard, the ankle tether. So there is a high level, generally speaking, there's a high leverage to getting people to get very comfortable with the ground level and horizon one. That said, if somebody shows up and said, hey, I want to know what my relationship with God is, and that's most on my mind, we go, fabulous. What's your desired outcome? What's your next action? So the horizons have, you know, the implementation of outcome and action has no distinction between what the horizon is. It just may have a lot to do with the subtlety of what your outcomes are and why you're thinking about it. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking. So let me toss it back to you. Did that address this, or how would you reframe your question? I'm not sure exactly that I may have understood.
Well, I think you answered it pretty well, because at least when I ask the same question, I tend to start with the topmost thing, like where do you want to go with your life? But what you just said now was much more intuitive and much more feasible, because it then points down to how are you able to bring your project forward? What do you have to do to have the time and resources to actually go out and buy cat food?
True. And, you know, come on, guys. If your day-to-day, hour-to-hour is out of control, don't try to think about 2 weeks from now. You'll just frustrate yourself. It's like, don't try to teach a pig to sing. You'll just frustrate yourself and annoy the pig. So don't, most of all those other productivity, you know, motivational seminars have people focus at the higher horizon. But these people are there with a day-to-day out of control. And good luck. All you're doing is adding, you know, guilt, frustration to people that they can't manifest that. You teach them how to manifest today, get clear about today. That's going to free up a whole lot of space for them to think in a much more grounded way about the things that really matter to them. That said, once you pay appropriate attention to what has your attention, you'll find out what really has your attention. Which, by the way, once you appropriately engage with, will free you up to then find out what really has your attention. Which, by the way, once you then appropriately engage with, will give you the freedom to think about what really has your attention. So if you try to start at the back end of that, good luck.
Cool. Let's go to Sweden.
Hi there. Well, this is like kind of personal question. Okay, so you feel free to answer that if you like. What is? I mean, I'm very curious. What is your daily morning routine? What do you do? What is the first thing you do when you wake up?
Sleep as long as I can. And so that requires me the night before.
Yeah.
So my day really starts the night before. The night before, I look at my calendar, which has the hard landscape for the next day or two. And that's what I check in on, so I can see how long I can sleep. I love sleep. I sleep as long as I can.
Okay.
And once I wake up, I have a small glass of half a lemon juice and water. Cleanse the system. I make a cup of fresh French press coffee. Read the front page, at least the front page of the New York Times. Play a couple of games of Words with Friends just to get my brain running, because they're on the other side of the planet. So I catch up with a couple of games of Scrabble. Take my dog out for pee and poop as required. And then, who knows? I plan as little as I can get by with. So then I just do what I feel like doing, based upon the hard landscape. What external commitments do I have? I have to give me the landscape of the day, and then if I have discretionary time, who knows? I do whatever I feel like doing.
Okay. That's very cool. That's very. By the way, great book. Actually, I read it in year 2006, and it was amazing. Actually, it definitely changed lots of my life. I would say actually. Yeah, very good.
Hey, let's go back to Finland. Jukka, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So here's a question that was relayed by a few seminar participants that were asking how to utilize the threefold nature of work in a setting where when they have participated on a seminar, usually their colleagues see that these people have become way more efficient at what they do. And what they notice is that other people start to bring them small fires all the time, and it seems that they are lighting up fires under their seats, because these people are very efficient in putting them out, but then they also feel the stress that the amount of unplanned work is piling and piling and piling, when they actually should feel a relief of actually having everything under control. So any tips, tricks, ideas about how could they delve deeper into the threefold nature of work in order to cope with these fires?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm going to give you at least two different points of view on this. One is, why the hell are they letting people interrupt them with that stuff? Are they unclear about their job? So if you don't know what your accountabilities are and what your roles are, and the people giving you stuff are not clear about their roles, they're not fulfilling their roles, that's an OD issue. Right? So, you know, your emergency is not my crisis. And, you know, another point of view on this is there are no interruptions, only mismanaged inputs. You either need that input or you don't. If you don't, stop it. If you do, that's your job. Right? So are they letting themselves take on things that are not their job? So then they're not doing their job because they're doing somebody else's job? That's just stupid. Or unconscious or something. Now, that said, most organizations are unconscious, so understood, you know, why that goes on. Implement holacracy, that'll never happen. Right? So you get real clear about roles and accountabilities, you know, with something like holacracy, then, you know, like, excuse me, why are you giving me this? Is this my role to handle this? Whose role is this? And if you take it on and it's not yours, you might want to do that to be either to be nice because you're an approval suck, or you want to do that because it has to happen because you care about the company and this thing has got to be handled, in which case, you know, the person who handed it to you needs to be trained or fired. So, sorry, that's the answer.
Yeah.
To that. See, there are no, you know, there's one organization that never has any fires and crises. Called the fire department. No, they don't. Why? They're organized for that. When they're not fighting a fire, they're getting ready for the next one. And by the way, 95% of the fire alarms are false. Talk about a reason to be pissed off. Right? They don't, but they don't go, oh, that's probably fake, forget it. No, they go, Come on, here's what we do. The alarm happens. Bam, 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 bam. That's what we do. We go out and they're fighting 5 fires at once. They don't just throw the hoses back in. They fold them up. Boom, they get them ready. So, what is this thing about interruptions and fires and crises? It should need to be a more mature thought process that needs to go on. And the threefold nature of work is true. You're either doing stuff that's on your list, doing stuff because the new stuff is more important than anything on your list, or you're deciding, taking the time to figure out, am my list current? That's the truth. That's not something you should do. That is what you are doing. The point is, if you're not spending enough time doing the defining work piece, am I getting my backlog to 0 today? Am I emptying my investments? If you're not doing that, then at some point, you're not going to feel comfortable about any new input coming in because you got a bunch of backlog. You haven't decided how to evaluate against it. So,
I think we might have lost David, or at least that's the case here in Denmark. Oh, you're back, David. Good. Then I propose we move on to the next Danish question.
Yes, hello, David. In the Dutch interview with Linda, great interview, you said when she was quite frustrated that the only way out is through. Was that there was no easy way out of when you're overwhelmed, that you need to go through the process?
And the question is?
It was this remark that when Linda was very frustrated and overwhelmed, you said the only way out is through. And can you elaborate a little bit about it? Is it you need to do all the steps to get rid of this overwhelm that you were seeing?
Well, it's quite simply, you're not going to get rid of the overwhelm by ignoring it or drinking or meditating. I drink, I meditate, and I ignore, but those don't handle it. I know all those behaviors, but those don't handle what it is that's creating the stress or the overwhelm. You want to get rid of the overwhelm. Hey, by the way, a fast way to relax. Would you all like to relax more immediately? Yeah, okay. It's real simple. Lower your standards. Just lower your standards. I don't care how much stress I have. I don't care what the kitchen looks like. I don't care that my kids are missed school. I don't, just lower your standards. And your stress will go way down. So if you want to get rid of the stress and keep your standards, you're going to have to do what you need to do to engage appropriately with the stuff that's got your attention. It's about appropriate engagement, folks. Come on, getting things done is not about getting things done. Well, it is in a way, but the primary factor is just being appropriately engaged with whatever your commitments are. And if you let something come into your life and pile up on your desk, I'm sorry, you are not appropriately engaged with it if you let it sit there and yell at you. Either throw the sucker away or decide what it means to you, what you're going to do with it. Park it somewhere you trust. You can actually simplify your life a lot. You just got a big cardboard box. Just label it crap I don't want to deal with. Just put all the crap you don't deal with in that box. Now you're organized. Hey, that's all the crap I want to deal with. Hey, you're cool. Most people don't do that, though. They don't clarify their agreements with these things that they are appropriately engaged with. Come on. I have a strange electronics drawer, like all of you do. Don't you have a drawer that has all the weird stuff you couldn't follow? It's all that, ooh, the thing died, but this charger, I might need that. Or you got this, God, Here. That's my right-hand drawer over here that has all the weird electronic stuff. I might even have access to, could use, might run across something that needs that to make it work. And that's as organized as it is. Well, I'm fine. That's where those things are. That's what it is. I am now appropriately engaged with that stuff. So if you kind of catch that, neat and organized are not the same thing. A lot of people are very neat, but their head is out of control. So I could keep going on that, but I think maybe that's your answer.
Thanks, and thanks for validating that I can have a box of old electronics in my basement that I should feel good about. So let's go to Espen.
Yeah, hi again. I've spoken to many people recently that kind of identifies that we've been talking about reasons why GTD or other productivity habits didn't work, and we most of the time we found out that the problem was stage 4. Review wasn't done consistently enough or good enough, or it was difficult to keep doing it after a while. What's your best tips or advice for continuing to do a weekly review and being consistently and appropriately engaged with all your stuff from not only for a week or a year, but for decades, like you've been doing now?
Keep doing it.
How?
Whatever tricks you need. It's a good thing to do to build habits. There's a part of us, the little 7-year-old inside of all of us, loves habits. It loves to do things. Oh, wow, every time I sit here, I do these kind of things. Every time I walk into the bathroom, I brush, I floss my teeth. Every time I do this, there's a part of us that actually loves to do that. So if you could build any kind of consistent, habitual behaviors around the weekly review, and a lot of times that's tying it into a location, tying it into a format, tying it into music you like to listen to. Initially, my weekly reviews, I always listened to Vivaldi. Vivaldi to me was the music that sort of turned me on. I listen to Vivaldi, I automatically get into, okay, I'm going to now sort of get the Baroque structure to my life. It was just, that was a big key for me. Some people, Saturday mornings at Starbucks, their weekly review time. Put on certain clothes that work for you, that get you to do that. I don't know, whatever you might need to come up with. I am not an expert in habit change. So my job was to describe what the behaviors were. Your job was to figure out how to do it. Because I'm not the expert in that. And Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, was great. And Fogg, F-O-G-G, his work on tiny habits was great. If you combine those together, Charles, his point of view was, look, don't try to change 22 habits. Find the keystone habit. But if you change that one, that'll be like a domino effect and cause a lot of others to sort of fall into place. And Fogg's point of view is tiny habits. Pick a small, tiny little win in that arena that you then tie to something you do consistently. I think Fogg's idea was every time he brushed his teeth, he did one push-up. Or, something he was going to do every day, at least once, and he tied doing a simple little thing in the arena that he wanted to improve, and tie those two things together. Start to build that as a habitual association. So I think those two things together would probably be my biggest coaching about how do you build those things in. I think the keystone habits, some of the keystone habits for me is keep everything out of my head, decide next actions, sooner or later, and empty my entrails. If you do that, if you do those things, that gets me to do a lot of other things that I don't have to worry about doing. I mean, I got something sitting here from a meeting today. I don't want to have to deal with this. Oh my God, this is about changing our wills and changing stuff, and you're going to move to the Netherlands. Don't want to deal with it. But because that's sitting in my end tray, I'm going to have to get my end tray empty. that's going to force me to have to make those ugly, hard decisions I need to make about what the hell do I do with that stuff that I've avoided or would avoid if I let this sit in the stack on the side of my desk instead of the desk. So there are keystone habits, and emptying your in basket and weekly reviews. Those are. And how do you build that in? God, if I had a pill I could give everybody, I'd make a lot more money than I do. But I get you to do that. So that's my answer.
Okay, and Pepe's Pizza.
Hi. Hi, David. I was wondering, what is the most unusual application of GTD that you have encountered?
The most unusual application of it, you said?
Yes.
Good question. Well, one guy swears that he cured himself of cancer by using this. Simply because when he was getting chemotherapy and having to be in a hotel room, he found my book and started to read it. He said, wow, what if I just started to focus on a positive outcome here? And started to decide what are the next actions I need to take to get there. And he's cancer free now. Now, whether you could say those were the specific things that made it happen. Certainly, in his point of view, it made a whole lot of difference for him to then recognize things he needed to do and things that didn't work. Ben Saunders, first guy to ski to the South Pole, solo. In Arctic. You can be ready. If you're going to do something like that, you better get your act together. This is not simple stuff. So those are kind of unusual, I guess, aspects of it. But anybody focusing on outcomes and actions, I mean, when that starts to happen, I mean, it happens everywhere. And in a way, after all these years, it's all the same. So in a way, nothing really stands out as unusual. Those just happen to be more dramatic examples, I suppose, of applying the productivity.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have to say, the other thing pops to mind. I walked into a room one day, and there were 20 people doing weekly reviews and having a blast, all simultaneously. Wow, really cool. They were just 8, 9, and 10 years old. So Mark Wallace, who was their teacher, who was the co-author, one of the co-authors of the new book, had been for 2 years, had been working with kids to understand this whole idea of outcome and action and how do you manage yourself and how do you do that. And weekly review, I walked in the room, the weekly review chart is on the wall. He said, hey, David, walk around and ask these kids what they're doing. So some of them were getting clear, some of them were getting current, some of them were getting creative. Having a great time. That's probably the most unique version of this. That's why he said, look, I guess we better write the book because kids can get this. It's not hard. It's fabulous when they do. That's it.
Oh, let's move on to Sweden.
Yes, I guess you meet people doesn't like GTD, that think that it doesn't work for them. What is the most common complaint or the most common reason people don't like it?
They're embarrassed. I think that's my assessment. The most common thing is people have a misconception that it's complex, that it's too structured, it's going to stifle them. A lot of people like, oh, well, come on. Most of the stuff that's paraded itself as time management and personal organization is crap. So most people's experience with this stuff is appropriately so. Oh, hey, that's another version of crap. I guess, I suppose. Anybody who's willing to engage with it has never said it's wrong. They just said, well, gee, this is really cool, but I just don't do it. or their perception of what doing it looks like is because somebody else is doing it that has 16 lists. They don't need 16 lists. That person may only need 2, but they didn't catch the essence of what this is about. So they just looked at somebody's structure and said, I don't need that much structure. But GTD is not about structure so much as it is having an appropriate structure wherever you're trying to manage. So with the least amount of psychic effort, you can see what you need to do when you need to do it. So I suppose that's it. People, most people go, okay, well, I do my own version of GTD. Yeah, wait 3 years, you'll come back. Come on. What's GTD? It just says, look, what are you doing so your head's clear at any point in time? What do you need to do to get something off your mind? What do you need to decide about it? Where do you park it? So, most people's perception is that it's a system. It's actually a systematic approach. And that systematic approach can work for an 8-year-old or it can work for CEO of a 400,000 person company. So it's the same process, a lot of different content, and the structure only needs to be the appropriate structure you need to manage the amount of content you have. So it beats me.
Okay.
Why do you guys think people resist this? I'm curious. Are you Scandinavians just saying, hey, we're already organized, we already have our life together, we don't need any of that? Is that what you run up against?
I think the most common thing I hear is, I don't need it. It's working fine as it is. I can keep it in my head.
Sure. And it probably is. That's fine. Most people haven't a clue about how much they have in their head, and they're basically BS, about that, because most people don't have any experience of what it's like to actually have nothing in mind. If they did, they'd have a very different reference point. But most people are just used to stuff banging around their head. So people's addiction to stress, or their willingness to tolerate that tension that shows up because things are still in their head, that's just so comfortable and so usual and familiar to people. They don't think they need to change. Wait till a major life crisis hits them and then see what happens.
I think there's a part that it's unpleasant to realize how many commitments you have, and when you start doing GTD, you get it all out on the table, and that can be scary.
Yeah, people get mad at me for their list. I go, I'm sorry, that ain't my list.
I'm not saying
your choice is where you keep track of it. You want to keep it in here, or you want to keep it out here?
Right. But it's
just read any of the cognitive science literature. They'll tell you which one you ought to do.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So this question actually came from the Facebook stream. From its comments, this is from a participant there, and it has to do with a term called meta work. I don't know how familiar the term meta work is in other countries, as in Finland. It's something that's used to describe all the, let's say, areas of responsibilities the mother usually takes care of at home. So the mother's time when not actually working is filled with meta work, which is actually just providing for everyone else at the home. So let's say that the mother practices GTD. How could she bring her GTD practice to home in order to gain ground from the meta work and actually get some work done that she feels like doing?
Well, at some point, and this is the point of the Getting Things Done for Teams book, was that at some point you have to transfer from the authority to you. In the U.S., because kids get cars early on, probably earlier than in Europe. At some point, you're not driven to your thing. You have to drive yourself to the thing. You have to figure out when you need to leave. Right? Or maybe you need mom to tell you when you need to leave, but you still got to do that. So the handoff but there's a handoff process that happens from a structure that's given to you until you're big enough, old enough, mature enough, experienced enough to handle what the structure had been designed to manage you before. Now you need to manage your own. So when kids transfer from middle school to high school, from high school to college, or from high school or college to a job, there's a big transfer of how do I manage myself now in a world that wasn't structured the way it was before. So school is a meta structure, or meta work, if you will. They give you a class schedule, they give you homework assignments, they give you all that. So I suppose that's a version of meta work, which is as best I understand the definition. Meaning somebody has defined what your work is. And, you know, in the old days, you know, that was the old pre-knowledge work. You know, the late great Peter Drucker, when he began to define the term knowledge work, said that your toughest job is defining what your work is. Because 100 years ago, most people made their living by making and moving things. So when you showed up unmade, unmoved things, it told you what to do. So the work essentially was defined by the external world in front of you. You didn't have to make it up. But every one of us right now is getting emails right now that do not tell you what to do with that email. You actually have to think. You have to think about it. You have to decide that. You have to decide, what am I going to do with that? And so forth. So there's no meta work that's happening that's telling you what to do with that email. So, yeah. So I suppose meta work would be, ultimately, that's where AI is going to get rid of a lot of jobs, because AI is going to figure out what the meta work is. So, hey, look, when a customer service hits number 3 on the phone, it automatically puts them into this bank. Then they answer A, B, and C, and then it moves into this bank. So they're defining meta work. That's a lot of the digital world is doing out there, trying to transform organizations to move to a digital environment, especially at the middle management. Big challenge for that area. I don't know if that is what we're talking about. UK, is that what you think they were referring to?
I think more towards the actual doing at home, in a sense that how could the mother, for example, get other people in the household to do GTD in order to
just pile up all the dirty clothes in the kid's bed.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. How would you do it?
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. I am now no longer going to do this. Here's what I think you probably need to get done. Here's how you would do that. All yours. Go.
So Jukka, I presume you will let us know how that goes when you give that a try. All right, we're running. We're getting really close to 7:30. Just one last quick question here from Denmark.
Yeah, thanks. It's a question of when, well, how to put it now. Sometimes things are getting really busy, and then the methodology gets under pressure, a lot of pressure, and it eventually, perhaps, sometimes, often, it breaks, and I have to catch up again. And I do it again and again, and it can be a little tense. It can be postponed a bit because it can be a little bit overwhelmed, and I kept busy for 24/7 doing projects and other work. Do I have some tips to, well, I know there's no way you can go around getting the stuff done and getting the job. You have to live through it, kind of. But how is there something that can ease getting in there, and some tips on how to not lose all of the track of what's going on, how to ease catching up, some tips for getting
If you were doing regular weekly reviews, you would not have that question.
Yeah, when that fails, that's the problem.
Yeah. No, that's, if you weren't taking an hour or two at the end of the week to catch up and say, here's what I haven't done, here's all the crap that's shown up that I haven't dealt with, And if it's all in your in basket, hey, once you know the game, it doesn't mean you're always on, it doesn't mean you're always relaxed. It just means that you know how to get to relax quick if you're not. So as long as I know how to get to relax, I don't care how much crap is in my in basket. I don't care how many things, whatever. Yeah, I'll do emergency scanning to make sure no barns are burning or there are no landmines sitting out there. But I know how to get clean, so it doesn't bother me. So the kind of zen of all this is once you really get comfortable with the game, you can feel comfortable being totally out of control. As a matter of fact, that's when you're most productive, is when you have the freedom to make a mess. It's just that if you're in a mess, you can't make one. But when I'm not making a mess, I'm cleaning up so I can make the next mess. So being out of control and being really busy, life's like that. Come on, enjoy it, have fun. It's paying for your rent. It's, you know, it's giving you opportunities to expand, to express yourself, to grow professionally and personally. So thank goodness, you know, we get stressed and we get all that stuff. It's just that I just defined the game so that if you want to get back into a next level of control, once you've lost it, then see, if you're not losing control on a regular basis, you're not playing a big enough game. So it just means you're in a big game. Hey, life's like that. Just make sure that your crap doesn't wind up on your desk, it winds up in your in basket. As simple as that sounds, that is really the essence of it. And then make sure at least once a week you pull up the rear guard and catch up with what you're not doing. So you can only feel good about what you're not doing when you know what you're not doing. So when you get really, really busy, and just for all of you, that's a hallmark of your maturity with GTD. Up until a certain point, that stuff will throw you off the game. After that point, that stuff will throw you onto your game, because you know that's what you need to do in order to get back into control. So just ask yourself, if you've lost the game, if you've fallen off the wagon, that's because you weren't mature enough yet with the process to realize, wait a minute, I'm off my wagon, I need to stop and do a weekly review. I need to stop and clean up and empty my head and clarify next actions and organize myself again, get my list current and clean. These are not rocket science things to do. But just recognizing when you need to stop and do that, it doesn't take me long. But come on, I resisted like anybody. I'm a fellow student. It can feel crazy, and I don't have time to sit down and do a weekly review, and I know I should, and when I sit down and do it, I'm not. So just keep going. Just keep doing it. Just stay with it. If you find a better, easier way to get past all this stuff, guys, teach it to me, and I'll put it in the next book.
Well, let's take that as the final words and recommendations for everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining in all the physical meetups here in all of the Nordic countries. Thanks for those. Thanks to those who joined us online. And of course, thanks to you as well, David, for taking the time to have a bit of fun with us. Lastly, for those of you who may be viewing this online after the fact, you can find more information about our meetups at meetup.com. Just search for GTD and the bigger city in your country, then you will likely find it. And of course, check out gettingthingsdone.com and gtdnordic.com. So we'll close the stream now. Thank you, everyone, and talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.